Welcome to the Open Studio. 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 Welcome to the Open Studio.
Love your fucking neighbor, please.
Hey everyone, welcome to our second installment of the Open Studio Presents. If you caught our first ever installment last month, we showcased M. Haverty's Show for Ghosts and then had an extended interview with M and their director. And we are back with more greatness for round two. Tonight we are going to be featuring Justin Golak's Statements, a stand-up comedy short film. We'll also have the directors of each of these 6 parts joining us throughout the night to have some chats about their respective pieces, along with Justin, and then wrapping up at the end with kind of a longer panel interview with all of them together. So if you have any questions while you're watching any of the pieces, while you listen to our interviews, drop them in the chat below. I'll do my best to monitor it. I think we've got like 3 or 4 of the producers like with eyes on the chat. Please ask your questions there, and I will do my best to work it into conversation. But if that question does not get answered and you're still burning to know, we will open up our Zoom call where everyone is kind of hanging out right now at the end of the show, so you can just pop in there and ask your question there as well. My name is Stephanie Duffy, and I am going to be your host for the evening. If that name sounds familiar, but you can't quite place where I'm from, it's because I'm normally the woman behind the camera. I'm a producer and the assistant director of the Open Studio. Normally, I'm not up front, but I guess with both Justin and Michael being thrust into the limelight tonight, they decided to take me with them. I'm not being forced to do this. This is something I volunteered to do of my own free volition. A little bit about the Open Studio before we get into watching all of the wonderful shorts that we have ahead of us. This is a completely community-generated environment, so everything you see around me, everything that's been presented to you up until this point and in the future is all made by us and for you. And if you want to be involved in any capacity, if you've got like a show idea or want to be on the show or even just want to make some cool visuals for us, go ahead, hit those links in the description. We've got a ton there. You can dig through all of them yourself. I'm not going to spend any more time listing all of them. Additionally, the Open Studio is a safe space for artists and patrons of all kinds. We get weird, we get freaky, we get gross, sometimes get uncomfortable too, but aside from that, we don't accept any kind of hatred here. That means no racism, no homophobia, no transphobia, no hate of any kind. Additionally, if you like us, like what we do, hit that follow button on Twitch. It helps our metrics out, helps us get seen by other people, and you definitely want to stay in the loop with what we're doing. I believe between now and the end of May, we have a show every Thursday night, and we're actually working on adding some Tuesday night shows too. So you want to get those notifications about when we're going live and when we're doing shows. Lastly, and this is by no means required, but if you are able, donations are always appreciated. They go directly to our guests and help support the community. Again, not required, but always appreciated. Before we go on and show all of these wonderful pieces again, I do want to introduce our featured guest, the person that kind of had this idea and made it come to a finished product. We've got Justin Golak with us. So a little bit about Justin. Justin Golak's comedy offers a brutal but thoughtful take on all the things your mom told you not to talk about in polite conversation. Delivered with just the right amount of infamous Golak charm, he'll only leave you with a small urge to punch him in the face and a more pressing one to hear what he said again. Tapped as Columbus Alive newspaper's 2012 entertainer to watch, Golak has taken stages across the country. If you enjoy being the thinking type who also appreciates a well-timed dick joke, this dude is for you. So welcome, Justin, or welcome back. Not in the hot seat. Welcome back.
Yeah, hey, what's up? It's good to be here, brought in instead of bringing in. I'm on the other side. It feels good.
Gotta say, it's definitely a different experience to be hosting it versus like telling you what to do to host. I very much appreciate what you do this much more.
Yeah, everyone can hear your voice now, not just me. I was just saying, everyone can hear your voice now, not just me. So it's fun.
Yeah, they can hear me like, all right, Justin, hurry up. We got to keep moving. Now I'm the one that needs to keep moving. But we want to keep this a little bit short up top just because we have 6 parts to go through. We want to talk with all the directors, give everybody ample time to kind of talk about their motivations and working with you and you working with them. So we just really brief right off the top. Tell us a little bit about what we're going to see tonight with Statements, a stand-up comedy short film. It did premiere on social media just over a year ago, right?
Yeah, March 5th. So it's almost been a year. And I recorded an hour of stand-ups, fourth hour I've recorded in some way. And, I put out 2 hours, the 2 previous before this, as just general specials, I guess you call it, just me on stage for an hour telling jokes. But I just wanted to do something different for the visual component. You can still listen to this as an album on all your streaming services, wherever you listen to music or whatever. But as far as for a visual component, I just wanted to do something different. So I, broke up the hour into 6 parts, roughly about 10 minutes or a little less each. And then I just had 6 different short films as like the visual component for each part. So that's what you're gonna be watching tonight. And I love how it turned out. And I loved working with the guys that I worked on it with who are also here. So it should be super fun to watch them again and talk about them. So yeah.
Awesome. Before we cut to our first part of the 6, did you have any quick what made you come up with doing shorts to match your comedy, not just like making a video about your explicit stand-up? Like, did this just come to you in the middle of the night, or were you like watching TV one day and were like, I like this?
I would say like the most like immediate contemporary influence was Drew Michael did a special, I believe it was just self-titled on HBO. Where he recorded it on a soundstage with no audience, and it looked great. Like, first of all, I think Drew Michael is very funny. So it's nothing to do with like the quality. I think his material is top notch. But like, it looked great. Like, cause they film it on a soundstage. You do multiple takes. You can get weird camera placement. Like, you don't have to worry about an audience, where they are, whether you shoot them or don't shoot them, and moving cameras. So it looked great. But he's just talking to camera, so there's no laughter. And I'm just like, I appreciate the swing. I always appreciate a swing, but I was like, I don't think it works without the laughter. But the visual is amazing. So I don't know. I just thought, kind of inspired off that, I was like, well, what if you just recorded the audio? Instead of recording the audio on the soundstage, just record the audio normal, like at a show, and then you can still shoot whatever you want later. And then instead of just trying to capture it together, if I would say anything I added to the stand-up architecture, which is probably nothing, I'm sure someone's had this idea before, I never feel like I'm that smart or anything, but it would be this kind of idea that no one's ever thought, like, why do you have to record the audio and video at the same time for stand-up comedy presentations? I don't get that, because the thing that I think cripples it, and like I said, Drew Michael at least tried, but what I think he kind of found the other side of the coin of what cripples stand-up specials from kind of being uninspired, is that to shoot everything you need to shoot great video makes a show so fun to be at, so not fun to be at. You need like lots of lights and like you need it to like look nice, where I think stand-up works well in a small room with low lights and like really just plain backdrops, like nothing to distract. So that Or you could say, okay, we'll do that then. We'll record it so it sounds great. And so the show's great. And then it's the most boring thing to look at. So I think, that's kind of what's tough. So I was like, well, why not service both parts the best you can and then just mash them together? So that was kind of the arch of the general inspiration in the most kind of contemporary way.
Yeah, definitely a unique perspective, and people will definitely see that tonight. But with that being said, that's pretty much our time up front. So let's get part one queued up. Part one is titled Hello, and it was directed by Timmy Hart Barron. So buckle up. We've got part one coming at you now.
My name is Justin Golak, and I do look like this. And that is because my mom is Hispanic and my dad is Polish, and if you want to do it, that's the best way. Because then you get to grow up in a rich, vibrant culture, and you also get a white last name. So, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good deal. I don't know if you've been around the country recently. A lot of me's. Growing demographic me. But every once in a while, I run into a Tucker Fernandez, and I'm like, ooh, so close. Almost had it, amigo. Almost. I feel like my dad loves me too much for me to ever be successful. I don't know if anyone else is worried about that. I just feel like I've been looking at great men throughout history, just looking at these great men. Because I'm like, I'd like to be great someday. I look at these great men throughout time, see if there's something I can glean from their experience, some sort of secret sauce. And I have found something. I found connective tissue amongst all great men, shitty fathers. That seems to be the force behind it. So I don't have that. I'm not lucky enough to get that, but I don't know. I feel like single mothers get a lot of applause breaks. You know what I mean? Maybe too many. A few too many. I feel like anytime I'm watching someone get inducted into a sports hall of fame, he's got some teary-eyed acceptance speech about his single mother, and it's like, okay, she didn't do nothing. She fed and clothed you for 18 years. That's not nothing. But let's not pretend that you're not on that stage because of the burning hatred you have inside for your shitty father. You know what I mean? Like, that's what propelled you to all those MVPs. That's why you're here. That's why we're all here. Have you seen sports before? Dunks? Touchdown celebrations? Does that look like I love you, Mom energy to anybody? Or does that look like some guy like, I'm Big Me now. I'm Big Me. Are you here? You never were. I mean, it feels good to make $1 million and buy your mom a house. It feels better to make millions of dollars and not buy your shitty dad anything. That's the better feeling. But I don't have that. My dad, 3-4 years into doing stand-up, my dad took me out for dinner and he's like, I know when you were younger, you seem a little unfocused. People were a little worried about you, but I wasn't. I knew you just needed to find something you were passionate about. And I see you doing that with comedy. I see you buckling down, working hard. I just want you to know I'm proud of you. And I was like, I'm going to die poor. You know what I mean? Like, that's fucked up. It's fucked up, dude. Not good. I feel like Joe Jackson, father of Michael Jackson. I feel like he gets a bad rap sometimes. You know what I mean? Like that music didn't come from nowhere. You know what I mean? Like people always ask, like Thriller, perfect album. How'd we get it? Every time we didn't get it, he got hit with a crowbar. That's how we got it. It's not a good story. This is a true story. Pretty much. I'm just kidding. I'm being facetious. You know what I mean? I don't want to be raised like that. But it just makes you think, pros and cons, right? We're recording an album tonight. It's not going to go double platinum. It's just not. I also don't need medical grade anesthetics to take a nap. You know what I mean? So it's like both got benefits from how we were raised. But that's what I always think about. How do you raise a good kid? How do you make him want to strive for excellence but also not go off the rails at some point? I think you just got to figure it out. You got to experiment. I don't have kids, but if I did, I would just try to do my best, just try to do a little bit better. I would just sit my kids down and just say stuff like, I just want you to know I love you very much, but I don't respect you. Something like that. I think that could make a good kid. I want you to know whatever happens, I will always be there for you, but I think you're a weak person. Something like that. I think that could all make good kids. I lost about 20 pounds recently, which I agree, it's not enough. It's not enough. 20 pounds is not enough to still look like this. Does that make sense? Like, this isn't a good after for 20 pounds. When I tell you I look, like, if I told you I looked like this and I had lost 200 pounds, you'd be like, well, you look like amazing. Because I assumed you looked like dog shit before. When I tell you I've lost 20 pounds, you're like, oh, so you looked about the same, but were more happy? Mm-hmm. For sure that. For sure that. I eat healthy. Does anyone eat like shit all the time? Anybody? Yeah. Don't stop, dude. It's the best. It's the best thing you can do with your life. Eating shitty. If you eat like shit 3 times a day, you get a treat. 3 times a day, you're just like, ooh, what now? You know what I mean? What should I get? Sweet, savory, both? I don't know. What are they offering? I don't get to do that anymore. I eat salads. Woof. Salad's not food, not the way I'm used to it. To me, food, as I was raised, it needs to fire off synapses. It needs to make you feel something besides full. You know what I mean? Like, it needs to move a needle. Salad is not food the way I've defined it. Salad to me is just an agreement not to die for 4 more hours. That's all it is. Just like, I'll see the next 4. I'll see what's up. It's tough, man. Like, that's a tough one, food, because it's like you gotta eat. You can't stop. You have to eat. If you want to eat better, you have to do what you love a worse way forever. Like, if you're trying to quit, like, booze or drugs, that has its own hurdles. I'm not dismissing that struggle. But at least you can abstain. That's the benefit. Is you're like, I'm done, and it's over. It's like, eating healthy is like if you were an alcoholic and you wanted to quit drinking, but you still had to polish off a 12-pack of O'Doul's before your kid's T-ball game. You know what I mean? Like, you'd be like, now it's just a lot of liquid, you know? It's not fun now. So I don't know, man. It's like everything, you know? We all have stuff we have to do, stuff we don't really think about, like shitting, right? We all shit, don't really think about it, just is what it is. But imagine there was 2 shits, all right? First shit, standard shit. It's the shit we all do. Don't really think too much about it. It is what it is. Not too good, not too bad. But then imagine there's this second shit. Doesn't take anything, no money, no effort, just a decision you make in every moment, what you're going to do, shit 1 or shit 2. The second shit, as soon as you shit, you come. All right? Now, wait a minute. Here's the caveat. If you choose to shit come too much, you might die of a heart attack randomly in a parking structure sometime in your 40s. All right, now, who still wouldn't shit come most of the time? You know what I mean? It's too good. You'd be saying the same things you say now. You'd be like, dude, my grandpa shit cummed his whole life. He lived to be 82. You know what I mean? Like, got good genes. Not even worried about it. It's crazy. I got one more shit thing. I just like to warn people. I feel like if you hear 2 shit things in a row, you're like, is it all shit stuff? And you tune out, rightfully so. But if I tell you there's one more, you're like, I'll do one more. We're here at the Hostel Euphoria, cool venue. They got a gender-neutral bathroom. I guess they just have the one, but that counts. You know what I mean? And I like being in a city like Chicago. I live in Chicago. Most places I go now, 3 is the new norm on bathrooms. If you have 2 bathrooms, you're below average. You're hitting the under. 3's the new, which I like. Because if I go into a bar or restaurant that has a gender-neutral bathroom, I know that I'm in an establishment where if I have to take a shit, there's a private stall for me to do that in. I don't know if you guys realize that gender-neutral bathroom is just a private shit stall that, by definition, anyone can use. It's pretty great. It's the best thing to happen to public shitting since the handicap stall. It's pretty good. Who's against these? Who's against these? It's people, I know. But like, that's the problem. It's just like, it's a divisive name. You know, some people are just not going to be on board, all right? Whether you like that or not, that's just how it's going to be. But why you have to call it that? Why can't you just propose legislation in Congress called the Private Shitstall Revitalization Act, right? They would be in every Applebee's in North Carolina by the end of the month. Sometimes you can't get what you want how you want. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to hide the progress in the mashed potatoes. You know what I mean?
All right, that was part one of Justin's statement series titled Hello and directed by Timmy Hart Barron. We've got him and Justin backstage as it is, in a virtual setting. But before we bring them on, just a little bit about Timmy. So Timmy H. Barron is an award-winning actor and non-award-winning comedian. Timmy has taught on-camera acting, stand-up, and producing your solo show at the Second City. He's received critical acclaim for his on-camera work with several Best Actor nominations and wins in film festivals across the globe. His original stage work has garnered rave reviews from Chicago Tribune and Red Eye Chicago. Timmy has performed with the Second City abroad Norwegian Cruise Lines and has written, produced, and performed in comedy, sketch, and musical improv shows on stages throughout Chicago for the past 9 years. His solo show, Kid in Church, has played to sold-out crowds in the New York City and Chicago Sketch Comedy Festival. His favorite on-camera credits include Chicago Fire, Wayne Hancock's award-winning music video, I Killed Them Both, and multiple films and commercials. So let's give it up for Justin and Timmy, both of them joining us now on our virtual set. All right, we've got all three of us here. Howdy, howdy.
Hey.
Definitely weird meeting under these circumstances still a year later. But I'm going to ask this to like literally every single one of you tonight, probably repeatedly. But Timmy, when you were making the visual component to Justin's stand-up piece, like, did you have any inspirations, any motivations? Like, did you draw from anywhere to kind of come up with the concept for this piece? Because I saw a lot of split screens that you did. There was a lot of like speeding up and slowing down of time a little bit. Could you speak to your thought process there?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it was really collaborative with Justin. He kind of pitched to all of us, and I'm sure all the directors will say something similar. But he kind of had a somewhat clear vision of what he wanted, with also giving us a lot of creative freedom, and then kind of let us do what we were gonna do for him. So. Justin and I had worked a while, like over the year leading up to this special, he was a writer on a sketch show that I was leading on IGTV. So we had collaborated with that. We were running a comedy show. We're just super close, and we've been super close for a long time and done a lot of things creatively. So it was really to work with him. As far as like the split screen goes, Justin, why don't you kind of talk about what you brought to the table with that first?
Yeah, I think like I'm glad that Timmy said that, because that's honestly the balance I always try to strike when collaborating. Is like, I know that the most annoying thing as a collaborator to hear when you're like working on someone's project is like, just do whatever you want, man, just have fun with it. Because then it's like, all right, well, like that's insane. But also I think it's annoying to work with like very micromanaging people, because you're like, well, I am a creative, so I want to add something. So I try to balance like the parameters. And I think, yeah, I tried to just kind of give a general outline, but then, allow for freedom within that. And yeah, that was just one. I think the main parameter for the first one was you're kind of introducing what this is going to be. And I think you need to subvert people's expectations that they're going to see someone actually performing stand-up comedy. So I think the big through line for all of it was, I was like, we can't show me performing. It's got to be all just edging, but never me performing. I'd rather show me running around a park than performing. So people aren't expected to see that in the other 5 parts. And then I remember one day, the only other idea I had, I was like, Timmy, I want to do like split screens, like really make it seem like like, because it'll show kind of the repetitive of this. Obviously, we're just shooting this once, whatever it is, me taking the bus or me running around the park. But let's like chop it up to almost make it seem like this is just something I do every day. I go to this open mic or an open mic every day. So it's like one shot, but it kind of just feels repetitive, because I think that was like the feeling we're going to get. And yeah, like Timmy also mentioned, he is just, I think everyone had their skills. I think Timmy's biggest skill in terms of working with him is like, he's just such a vibe receiver. Like he really just like connects instantly. And I remember I literally just said like, we should do like split screens. I can't think of an example. And in like 30 seconds, he pulled up like the opening scene of 127 hours. He's like, this? I was like, dude, like exactly like that. Like that. Thank you. That's amazing that you just found that right now. I was like, well, like, it was not even like inspired by him. Like, this is the thing. Do this.
Yeah.
So,
which got me really excited because I've been doing vertical video for a while now. Unlike most directors that I know that that's the devil, like horizontal, like with split screen allows you to do vertical video and mix it with horizontal. So that was, when you said that, I was super pumped. Of course, I love Danny Boyle and how he used that 127 hours. So I was like, let's do vertical video all throughout. But to the point where you were like, we never want to see me performing. However, we were trying to make this connection through working out and how doing open mics is a workout. That's a comedian's workout. So we start with showing the workout, just kind of set out, at the beginning of the day, working out, and then how you work out the rest of the time. So it's just like traveling from open mic to open mic to open mic and kind of surrounding everything but the performance. And of course, we saw sometimes, whether it's a peep shot through the window or from behind on stage, we never actually saw you doing the stand-up unless it was a shot like that. And then kind of what happens when you're traveling, you got like the show's over, you've got like 30 minutes to the next show. Let's play a little pool. Let's go grab a hot dog at Magic Hat. Is that what it's called? Magic Hat?
Yeah, dude. Best Polish in Chicago.
Yeah, that's true. And then kind of just traveling throughout and showing that, and then it ending up at one of those shows that you're preparing for. And that was House of Blues.
I was going to say, with House of Blues, how did you manage to get in there with a camera? Like, did you have hurdles to go through? Did you have to like slip some money under the table, or?
I just had a show. It's a show called, I think, Comedy Cocktails. It's on Tuesdays, or was. Nothing's on anything anymore. But, I think we were just going to film like the open mics, like everything but that I think we had planned. And then I kind of just threw out like, well, maybe I'll get like a show in a cool venue and that can be the bookend. If not, we'll find another way to end it. And I just so happened to that was actually New Year's Eve. I happened to get booked. And, we were trying to, I think, finish filming by like mid-January or something. So it came in like right under the mark. But I was like, Timmy, if you're free New Year's Eve, it's like at 7, you can get back home to do New Year's at midnight. But if you're free on New Year's Eve at like 7, we could film at House of Blues in the, what is it called? It's like the Foundation Room. I was like, and it looks really cool. Like it would be a cool place to shoot, just get some, even if you just got B-roll, it would look cool. So if you can make it, and he was able to make it, and we just shot there for like the hour before the show started and a little bit during the show, but so it worked out.
Yeah. I actually didn't film, whoever we saw on stage was somebody else. Because I had to leave before you got up there. And I was actually hosting a karaoke night on New Year's Eve. So I was only there for a little bit, but super cool room. And I was talking, I guess, before we jumped on here, the marketing guy at the House of Blues. So Stephanie, to answer your question, I didn't ask anybody for permission. I just assumed, Justin knew the people running this show and we were good to do it. But the marketing guy did come up to me and be like, the room is set up a little bit different. Be sure that it looks good. And I was like, dude.
So, moral of the story is don't ask permission, ask for forgiveness.
Yeah, you got it.
That's the big takeaway here.
Always.
All right, we are running a little bit short on time, so we got to call it quits on this interview here. But Timmy, you will be joining us at the end of all of these parts to have a longer chat with the other two directors, as well as Justin and myself again. Up next, also, before we even go any further, 1 second, Justin, you said in your first stand-up bit that statements wouldn't go double platinum, and like you're okay with that, but you are on the Open Studio Presents, so I'd consider that a pretty very good second place, if I
Huge.
do say so myself. But
sure,
on
for
that
sure.
note, we're going to wrap up this first interview. Thank you so much to Timmy and Justin so far. Justin, we're going to see you back in a few minutes. But before we see you back with our next director, we've got part 2 to see. Part 2 is titled Power, and it is directed by Michael J. Garrity. You might have heard his name, maybe seen him once or twice around here before, but we've got that queued up for you next.
Talked about dealing with like weight issues and stuff like that. I feel like I've been dealing with that for like a while, my whole life really. So I have like nuanced thoughts on it, which is like this is not a good time to have nuanced thoughts on something. You know what I mean? I feel like every conversation is like, I bet you think this. You're like, actually, I don't think that. They're like, oh, so you probably think that? Get the fuck out of my restaurant. You know? You're like, I don't think either of those things. So. I don't know. Like something I think is like fat people shouldn't be proud of their bodies. People hear me say that. They're like, holy shit, you think fat people should be ashamed of their bodies? I'm like, absolutely not. That's disgusting. I would never say that. They're like, well, you said they shouldn't be proud of their bodies. Now you're saying they shouldn't be ashamed of their bodies. What should they be? I'm like, I don't know. Fun at parties? You know what I mean? Like, that seemed to work for a while. Have you been to parties recently? They fucking are dog shit, man. Like, they're not good anymore. They're not good. Now, I don't like to blame the world for my problems, so I looked internal first. I'm like, dude, you're 35. You're still going to parties. You're lame. That's why parties seem lame. But I thought about it. I'm like, no, man, I do this shit for a living. I'm hanging out with younger people. Basically, I'm hanging out with people the same age I was when I was having the most fun at parties. This is party's fault. And I thought about it. I was like, oh, yeah, you're hanging out in 2019 with people in their mid-20s. Everyone at these parties thinks they're beautiful, and those are the most boring people at every party. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just people sitting around waiting to get talked to. Who's going to chug a bottle of red wine for attention? You know, who's going to get this party going? Self-confidence is not a good party drug. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. I was excited about this next generation, man. They had Adderall. They were drinking till 4, still getting A's. I'm like, stop drilling. You hit oil. You know what I mean? Now they feel good about themselves, and it's not fun anymore. I support the troops. I think that's important. Now, I might be a little generationally biased, but I think the troops we have today, best troops we've ever had. Just my opinion. Because I see troops today, they troop around the world, trooping it up, just like troops have done for years, which I say is enough. Thank you for your service. But troops today, man, they want to do more. They want to help out. They don't have to. It's not in their job description. They just want to because they see us as a country kind of bummed out, and they want to help. So what troops today will do, again, they don't have to. They just want to. They just want to help. Troops today, they will get on TV during commercial breaks, and just to make us feel better, prank their families. You know what I mean? See some 8-year-old girl on stage about ready to do a spelling bee. Some guy in fatigues behind a curtain like, she thinks I'm dead. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to goose her. He's going to get her good. You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't know. She doesn't know. And then he comes out, and she's crying, and he's crying. They hug, and it's a sweet moment. We're all invested. We're crying maybe at home. We're happy. We're feeling good. 30 seconds, cuts you back, sends you to wherever you're watching before. Perfect. That's perfect editing. Probably edited by a troop. Very precise. Because I think we know if that commercial went 60 seconds, that's too long. Too much time to think now. Now we're thinking, wait a minute. The war's not over. This guy's just on leave. He's got to go back to the war in 2 weeks. I thought I just saw a nice moment between a father and his daughter, but I think they might have just showed me the last time a daughter saw her father alive. I'm like, God damn. Are you trying to sneak the news in on me, TV? What are you doing? I was just trying to watch the Eagles game. You cannot sneak the news in on me. I trusted you, Roku TV. You know what I mean? Like, I thought we had something. Weed's about to be legal in Illinois. People, yeah. It's good. People are happy. Some people are not happy. It's cops. Cops are not happy. I was reading this article. It was written by a cop. It was in one of the local papers. And this was just when they were debating the issue in the state legislature. And it It was basically a cop saying, listen, we're about to legalize marijuana. I know that seems cool to everybody. We're all excited. But here's something you're not thinking about. We have all these drug-sniffing dogs, and as soon as we legalize marijuana, we're going to have to euthanize them. Yeah. And as a dog lover, I was like, fuck those narc dogs. You know what I mean? Like, I don't give a shit. Dude, I'm sorry. Once you get a job, you lose your dog privilege. All right? Like, I don't... No love for a dog in a vest. I'm sorry. You picked your side. All right. Here's the thing. If I could be honest, I'm over German Shepherds as a whole. I think they've been getting it too good too long. The way we treat German Shepherds shows our failings as a society in general. All right? Because when I say violent dog, what do you guys think of probably? Pit bull? That's usually the most common answer. Pit bull. Pit bull's not a violent dog. Pit bull is a victim of circumstance. Pit bull is born into violence, forced to fight to survive. And if it manages to get out of that, whatever city it's in, it's on some dangerous breed list. So of course it's going to get hemmed up just for trying, right? It's just a victim of the kennel to pound pipeline. That's what a pit bull is. But then you got German Shepherds out here for years, all they've been doing is biting civil rights protesters and putting nonviolent drug offenders in cages, right? But their violence is institutionalized, so we don't even see it that way. So what I'm saying is if you're a dog lover like me and you feel bad for these German Shepherds, don't. Because they're not dogs, they're fucking pigs. Fry them up with the rest of the bacon, that's what I say, all right? So... Are any engineers here? Any engineers? No? It's possible. You know what I mean? It's possible. I like to just always check because I don't have any distaste for engineers on an individual level. I don't think they're inherently bad people. But I do think they are single-handedly ruining the world as a group. I think it's their fault because this is what I learned. I lived with all engineers in college. I lived in a big house, bunch of engineers. I was not one. I was a communications major. I'm supposed to be here, but they were just my buddies. So we got a house. And what I learned about them, first of all, they're very smart. They're probably some of the smartest people I ever met. And when you're that smart, you live in your head a lot. It's a very heady place to be when you are that kind of smart. Also, I realized, you're in school and then you get a job in those fields. Very intensive. So a lot of working on engineering, a lot of working with engineers. Like you're in one world all the time. It's very tree, not forest. So that's what I learned. And it made sense because I'd start to see, like I saw this engineer on TV. And he worked for a 3D printing company. He owned this 3D printing company. And he said, I would like to make 3D printers so ubiquitous that they're in people's homes as regularly as regular printers are in people's homes now. And that's great. If everyone has a 3D printer, let's say you're working on something. You're building something. You need a new tool or a new part. You don't have to go to the hardware store. You just print that out right at home. I was like, dude, no one is going to use it for that. Like, what do you... Dude, engineers gave us smartphones. They thought they saved the world. Like they thought, well, we've saved the world. We've saved it. And they gave it to us. And we collectively were like, so do we come in it? Or is there a compartment we pull out for the cum? Or do we come near it and it gets the cum? Like just... give me a quick start on this. And then they were like, yeah, you don't come at all. And they're like, it's not waterproof yet, probably version 2. Got you. And they're like, no, just like read a book. And you're like, erotica? I don't know what you want me to do with this cum receptacle with lights on it, all right? You're confusing me. As soon as they give us all 3D printers, we're printing bombs and pussies exclusively. That's all we're printing. Stop giving us things. It never goes well. I saw this other engineer on TV, and he takes a cockroach. He puts it in liquid nitrogen, pulls it out. All right, now it's frozen, but it's not dead. It's just in like a stasis. He clips off its antenna, puts a microchip on its back. When it thaws out, he takes out a joystick, and he can move this joystick left and right, and that makes the cockroach move left and right. And this guy, this fucking guy, he looks right at the camera and goes, we think with the technology we're developing, we can make prosthetic arms and legs for people that have lost a limb. And we think we can do this within the next 10 years. And I'm like, dude, it is so crazy how you do not realize you're part of a super soldier program right now. You know what I mean? Like, you're not making limbs. You're making Terminators. Stop now. You know what I mean? Blow up where you work. Save the future. You know what I mean? Like, what is wrong with you? I'm just saying, if you're an engineer, you're probably not a bad person. Just get coffee with a poet like once a month. You know what I mean? Just round it out. Just round it out.
All right, and we are back. That was part 2, titled Power and directed by Michael J. Garrity. Before we bring him and Justin on, a little bit about Michael. Michael J. Garrity is a collaborative artist, storyteller, and filmmaker with a passion for celluloid and other analog mediums. Through his work, Michael strives to cultivate a deeper expression of compassion and empathy for the things that make us uncomfortable by addressing our perception as it relates to our understanding of self and one another. Michael graduated from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago and has worked on TV shows, Hollywood, and indie films. Additionally, he's collaborated with artists and performers from all over Chicago to produce numerous short films, music videos, feature-length screenplays, and even a stage play. His work has screened at festivals across the country and is currently a founder, producer, and director of The Open Studio. You can find him on social media and streaming on Twitch under the name Vulgarity. I believe he's also in the comments somewhere as well, lurking around. His entire portfolio can be viewed at michaeljgarrity.com, where you can also buy prints of his analog photography. So let's bring on Michael and Justin.
Hey! It's weird being on the show and directing.
Sounds good. Your name is weird.
And there's my mic. And my name is updated.
There we go. Now we're good. Okay.
Nice.
It's fun wearing multiple hats at the same time. It's fine. This is fine. Everything's fine. But I think Michael and Justin, same question that I kicked it off with Timmy before, is what was your inspiration and motivation for creating this piece? I believe it was shot all on motion picture film, right, Michael? So when you and Justin were chatting and collaborating and coming up with this idea, where did you pull from?
Yeah, so I think it was Justin who said, just like with Timmy, he kind of gave us a little bit of a guideline. And for me, it was, I wanted to be in black and white. I have it in black and white. I'm thinking of that Black Mirror episode with the robo dog. And immediately my brain I've got to shoot out in film. I have to. At the weird film purist in me, you can only do black and white on film. Otherwise, it's a lie. It's not true. But also part of it, it was not pretentious. I had the film camera. I'd been looking for an excuse to use it. And the concept of the troops being in the woods, wanting to be black and white, it was super gritty, super raw. And I felt that the film really lended itself to that topic.
And over to Justin. Oops, sorry, I was muting myself so I didn't get picked up on Michael's tangent. But with Justin too, when Michael came to you and was like, "Hey man, you said black and white. How about motion picture film?" What were your thoughts when he presented that idea to you?
Honestly, with anything that's an independent production, you're just all right, just tell me how much it costs and we'll see if we can make it work. Otherwise, I don't really care. Whatever you want to do, this is why I'm bringing other people on. I'm I don't know. Is that good? You seem to be excited. I trust you. So let's do it. In practice, honestly, the thing I liked the most about it, was I feel this chunk, part 2, is probably where I have to do the most acting. And it's clearly the weakest part of any of these films is my acting. But what I liked about it is I hate preparing. I hate running through stuff. I hate it. And I think I do worse for it. It's just how I'm built. So what was nice is it's all right, well, we can only shoot everything twice at most because it's film, which is again, probably something people don't think about now because you just take 8,000 pictures of your pasta, and it doesn't cost anything. So, but that was nice because it was just the pressure of the moment. Like, all right, don't trip, don't forget what to do. You can't just walk and then be like, wait, where am I walking again? Behind what tree? So in practice, I loved it, So yeah, as far as for acting purposes, I loved it. I don't know the technical aspects, but I do think it looks great. So in that way, I think it worked out really cool.
I mean, I think it played really well into the analog aesthetic. Like, it's not this high glitz and glam Hollywood production where we have professional paid actors. We've got motion picture film. There's going to be some like human error on the filming side and on the acting side, and I think it complemented each other really well. That being said, Michael, shooting on film, like, how do you anticipate all of the errors? Like, there's so much that can go wrong and go catastrophically wrong. Like, how do you prepare yourself for that other than like driving yourself insane? Like, how do you do it? Literally.
Well, you learn by making a lot of mistakes in your past. Just going through film school, shooting short films, being overconfident, making those mistakes, and learning that you can't get overconfident and you have to plan for plan A, plan B, plan C, and plan D, and be ready to pull a plan E out of your ass. Because anything that can go wrong will go wrong on a film set. I'm not really a religious or superstitious guy, but I believe that there are film gods and they are out to get you. So it's really just tapping into your anxiety, like what could go wrong in this situation, and having a plan for it. But I think, speaking about like Justin mentioning your acting skills, we had a couple conversations about that, and I think we tried to lean into that. Like the story that's kind of woven through this piece is it's a guy who's lost, and so just tried to live in that moment, being uncomfortable, playing a character, being uncomfortable in these scenes, being uncomfortable on film, and that anxiety of we've only got 1 or 2 takes, let's get it right now, and just try to put it all into that.
Yeah, pretty great. Question for Justin, especially because you say like, I hate rehearsing things. I hate like doing all of this like type A planning that Michael seems to love to do for literally everything. With this short, it looked like we had like 3 different sets. Like, I'm assuming that y'all shot on like a few different days. Like, what was it like for you, like emotionally or mentally? Just like, okay, not only do I not like to rehearse things, but now we're doing like 3 different locations. I've got to keep up with the continuity of my outfits and like keep all of these details straight. Like how was it being there?
Oh, well, to be clear, if someone else wants to do it, I am not against it. It's not like a moral judgment. It's a personal preference. So I think he had literally like a binder, like a binder with stuff. And I was like, dude, hell yeah, thank you so much. But he wasn't, I don't feel like he pushed it on me. Like, he wasn't like, okay, we're going to have like 3 days of rehearsals. But like, so I'm like, yeah, dude, if you want to prep, like, thank you. Like, I'm not, it's like, for everything, the caveat for anything I ever say is like whatever works for you. So yeah, we shot like 3 different plays, but again, like this was, I think, the second longest one. It was like 8 or 9 minutes. So to get an 8 or 9 minute film, which doesn't sound long, but it adds up, to only have to be 3 different places. We shot where like the apartment scenes, and then in the woods, and then I think it was, where were we at? Playground
theater. Yeah.
Playground theater, for any of those shots that just look like you're in a black void. So yeah, to get an 8-minute film, I think looks great out 3 shots. Yeah, that was totally fine. So yeah, I didn't mind it at all. So yeah, it was great.
No, I think it was more difficult for me. Well, and when I'm working with actors, performers, or even crew, it's people who are working for me. And this is one of those weird producer performer relationships where I'm working for Justin, but then he's also working for me in those instances. And I love those types of collaboration where the line is blurred between who's in charge, that we're working on this together. It's about the gestalt. But whenever I'm making a film, I want to make it as easy as possible for the people who are working for me. So that's why I have the binder. That's why I have all of the pages. And I try to be as organized as possible, get them to my talent and my crew as soon as possible, and give them the list of everything they need so they don't have to think about it. I will carry that burden so that we're on set. I just have to tell them what to do, and they just have to do it. And hopefully it all comes together.
If only there was a place where you could collaborate so deeply with other artists and performers and producers. Someone should really get on that. But
Yeah,
on that note, oh, sorry, Justin, do you have any final words before we have to move on?
The last thing I'll say too is like just kind of related to all that is I think the energy I try to bring to everything, and especially to this, is just like, I mean, you could really, I think people get too hung up on this for any kind of project, even if you're working in a kind of more well-trodden genre, but especially when you're doing something different, like I would just try to reassure everybody, but especially like with Michael, because he wanted to do so many kind of like big things that had a lot of moving parts. I was like, there are no expectations for this by me or any potential audience. Like, this is not like a thing. So if you're like, we only have 10 minutes of a tree, I had the camera running by accident, we ran out of film, I'd be like, all right, let's just put my stand-up over 10 minutes of a tree. That's kind of artsy in its own way. It'll be like a nature film with stand-up. So I think really all I told all the guys at the beginning was like, I need to be in it for some period of time just to connect me to the voice that you're hearing. But dude, you could show me for 30 seconds. You could mostly shoot nature or building, like whatever you want to do. So yeah, I think it's harder to focus on mistakes when you're like, there's no expectations for this. Whatever works both for your creative mind and for like limitations we have works. So
Yeah, and that's a good perspective to have, especially collaborating with other people. Just that like open expectations, and go figure, it's not going to do, nothing's going to happen. And here we are a year after you released it, chatting about it on a show that we've put together. But we've got to keep our show moving because we've got 4 more parts. And then a whole chat at the end, which we're going to be, again, chatting with everybody about literally everything. But up next, thank you, Michael and Justin, again, for joining us for this brief chat. I know it's like really hard to cram like all the questions I want to ask and all the answers that you have into like this short of a time. So I appreciate you trying to like keep it snappy. But let's move on to part number 3 of Justin Golak's statements. This one is titled History, and it was directed by our third and final member of this group of peeps that have created this masterpiece, Dane Kissel. So let's get that queued up. Michael, the one wearing 200 hats today.
If you've ever got a 23andMe done, you're not racist, but watch out. Watch out. Be careful, because you're not racist, but you care about race a lot. Like, you're bringing labs into it. It's very important to you how German you are, and it's not a good start. You know what I mean? It's not a good start. Also, have we not yet realized that race is not real? Like, it's a made-up parlor trick, because people get those back all excited, and they'll be like, I'm German. It's like, dude, that wasn't a country 200 years ago. Like, you can't be German. No one's German. We made it up. You know what I mean? All those tests should come back one way. You should get them in the mail and be like, honey, it looks like I'm a fish that can use a phone now. That's what I am, 100%. Put it on the fridge. Also, okay, maybe you're not a racist. You're at least a sadist, at minimum. Because what do you think you're learning with that? All you're finding out with a 23andMe is what part of the world your great-great-great-great-grandmother got raped in at some point in history. That's all you're... If that ever comes back and you're like, 4% Swedish, how'd that happen? Not a good way. You know what I mean? Like, someone's worst day is how that happened. That pie chart is just a documentation of war crimes. That's all it really is. Dude, it's 2019. People still brag about being part Native American. It's like, how do you think that happened? You know what I mean? That's not a brag. That's a dark family secret. You know what I mean? Like, you should, if that comes back, you should be like, burn that. Tell people we're Italian. Do not bring that in here. I guess this is probably the easiest way to ask this question. Does anyone here not own a smartphone? Anyone not? Okay, everyone here. I do too. They say 2/3 of Americans do, so that makes sense. They say it'll be up to 90% within the next 10 years because people tend to upgrade when they get new phone plans. So 90% in the future, 2/3 now. Everyone here, and we all know that smartphones are made by slaves. Which I know we all know, because when I said it, no one was like, wait a minute, what? I had not heard that. Where are you, Chet? Which is funny because here's something, I'll give us credit. In America, we have the least slaves we've ever had. Like, we are at an all-time low on slaves. And we should give ourselves credit for that. Like, that's a positive thing. But I would judge by those smartphone numbers that we are the most okay with slavery that we've ever been at any point in history. It makes me think the Civil War wasn't about ending slavery. It was about not wanting to see slaves. You know, like it was just like everyone was, you know. People were like, look, I get that it's integral to the economy, but just not here. It's gauche. You know what I mean? Like it's a bad look. It's a bad look. We like to think, it's just interesting because I think we like to think that we're automatically better people just because we were born later in the future. But you're made of the same meat that people have been made with forever. You have to actively make yourself a better person. It can't just happen through history. You know what I mean? That's why you don't care, because smartphones are too sweet. They're the best. You think if you met a Chinese slave, they'd be like, dude, I get it. It's not even a big deal. Like, I'm just happy you're happy. You know what I mean? Like, it makes me happy. But they wouldn't. They'd be very upset. And but that's just how it was. That's how it's been forever. You know? The cotton t-shirt was just the smartphone of its day. You know what I mean? Just some guy in Ohio like, dude, I know how it's made, but I can't go back to canvas. You know what I mean? It's too itchy. I mean, I voted for Lincoln, so I did what I could. You know what I mean? Like I did what I could. It is interesting. We're in like an election year, like an election cycle year, which the only thing I really like about that is like new issues come up, so you hear new things discussed. I think that's important. I feel like this year, kind of like the new issue that's kind of on board is people have been talking about reparations. That's been getting a lot of mic time, which I think is good. Except a lot of people, when they talk about reparations, they talk about giving black Americans money, which I don't really like. I think it's like a shallow solution for a deeper problem, you know? But I think the reason people bring up money is because they're like, they know what the real solution is, and they don't like it. So they're like, how much cash can we give you to never talk about this again? I think that's what's going on. Because I think people know that the only reparations, the only real reparations, white slavery, right? Like it's the only one. And here's the thing, it's going to be 1 to 3 generations tops. That's all it'll take, all right? We'll be square. And if you're worried about it, don't. All right, it's 2019. All the cotton's picked. Those jobs are gone, right? You're going to be installing modems, picking up dry cleaning. It's not going to be that bad. If you work at an Amazon fulfillment center, it'll be a lateral move for your life. All right? Like, it'll be, you won't even notice. And here's the thing. We do 150 so years of white slavery. Now we have true equality. That gives black Americans a chance to accrue generational wealth, establish institutional control, and become true equals in this society. And if you're a white American, great. You get something that you have been wanting for hundreds of years, an interesting culture, right? Think of 150 years of white slavery. Ooh, the music. The art, the food. Oh, the next Renaissance is going to be in Kansas City, and it's going to be good. It's going to be good. And then we can stand together, all shades, true, real equals, and live in this country, live in this society as true partners. Hold hands and become slaves for the Chinese, I think. That's probably where, can't fix that one. That's probably where that's headed.
All right, that was part 3 titled History. And before we bring Dane and Justin on for their 5-minute chat, just a little bit about Dane. Dane Kissel is a freelance filmmaker currently living in LA. Born and raised in southern Indiana, he got his degree in film and video in Evansville, Indiana. Shortly after graduating, he made his way to Chicago in 2010, where he started Real Genuine Productions. His focus began with weddings and quickly opened up to working with local musicians and comedians, including Justin Golak. In 2017, Dane made the move to Los Angeles, where he shot video for comedy improv teams at the West Side Comedy Theater and Second City Hollywood. So let's welcome Justin and Dane back to our virtual space for their chat about history. All right, welcome back, you two. We are back in our virtual space. Hello. Gosh, where do I even start? There was so much giggling going on in the back while we've rewatched this and kind of reminisced. I think my biggest question, aside from like obviously like where did you pull from, like what did you collaborate with Justin on to create this piece, Dane? But just like more so to the both of you, did you plan this trip out west to go shoot this, or Justin, were you like already planning a trip west and then we're just like, fuck it, let's film out here and get some visuals for the show? Like chicken or the egg, which came first?
It was definitely for the shoot. It was basically like, so Dane had shot, if you want to watch my 2 previous hours that are just like standard stand-up specials, Dane shot and edited both those. And I just was like, man, I know we're doing something different. And Dane lived in Chicago at the time where I live, and now Dane's in LA. So it's like, but man, I would love to like Dane to be a part of this. And I was like, I know filming in LA though is going to be a nightmare, and I'm not going to ask Dane to fly into Chicago to like shoot this thing. And I was like, what if we go to Vegas? Like, I'm like, I can fly out to Vegas cheap. Dane can like drive like 3 hours or get like a cheap flight. It could be like a great compromise. And then just, I love Vegas. I've been many times, and you're always just thinking like bang for buck. And I was like, we could shoot on the strip, spoiler alert. And I was like, and we can also shoot in the mountains. So we could get these 2 really diverse kind of shoots off one trip. And I can get Dane as a part of 2 of these things. And like I said, I love working with Dane. So I was like, that's ideal. So yeah, it really was kind of like a trip for the thing, kind of just trying to maximize both shooting and also just like get Dane involved in a way that was like easy for him.
Awesome. Yeah. So Dane, aside from like Justin being like, let's go to Vegas for his direction. I mean, Justin's been saying he's pretty loosey-goosey with his direction and collaboration. Was that all the direction that you were given, as just like, yo, I'm coming west, you come east, we meet in the middle, let's do this thing? Or did he give you some more of like, oh, I want some nature, or I want drone footage, or I want time lapse? Like, did he give you any more specific direction outside of that?
That was a big pro was already having, like, previously the year before I got a drone, got a Mavic Air. Which is a pretty nice drone. And yeah, so, and I've never been to Vegas before. So when he brought this idea up, and he said, you know, he kind of had the idea of who was going to direct what segments. And so he gave us the album ahead of time, so I could kind of like listen to it and kind of have some ideas on, how I wanted to put it all together. But yeah, it was that's it. That's all I got.
That's pretty cool. I mean, to take, I think that's like a thing that you did really well with this project, Justin, is just like giving enough direction that people had a starting point, but then letting, from what we've seen so far and what I know the next 3 parts look like, just kind of letting each director like live in their own space. I think that was a really like effective use of everybody's kind of unique skills. On the topic of unique skills, Dane, have you done any more drone work since this part?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, I've been trying to get into some real estate photography. So before the pandemic happened, I was able to make some trips back at home. And yeah, like I have an aunt and uncle who bought this old Victorian home and fixed it up to be like an Airbnb kind of place. And so I did some work there. And then for my hometown, the Visitors Bureau, I got permission to shoot like our courthouse in town and some of the other highlights of Princeton, Indiana. No big deal. And so there's been, I definitely want to have more, because flying a drone is an absolute blast. But yeah, it was so awesome to be able to use it out in Red Rock for this particular shot because we did two things. We did the Fremont Street one day, and then we did Red Rocks the next day. And just went for a little hike. And I wish we could have done another day just because of how gorgeous it is out there, and just to get even more footage than we did. But yeah, it was an absolute blast. One of the best trips. Just hanging out with Justin and his wife Jackie. It was an absolute blast.
Yeah, I was going to say, even just looking at the shots in this part, I mean, I know what's coming next, but in this part, just those like wide open spaces, just I think like using that was like the perfect use of the drone footage, and it allowed like it was interesting enough that like I was still visually watching the piece, but then it also allowed me the freedom to like focus on what Justin was saying in the piece, which is like ultimately like that's why this is there, is so we listen to Justin, like that's why it's his project, and we brought in some visuals as like a partnership there. But I think you towed the line really well with interesting but kind of stark visuals so that Justin's comedy could shine through. And like on the note of Justin, your comedy here, I know we're running a little bit towards the end of our interview time, but throughout your entire statements piece, other comedy I've heard you do, even stuff that you do on the Open Studio, you have just this way of being so matter of fact with what you say, no matter if it's positive or negative, that I think is just so goddamn hilarious. Like even in this piece, you were talking about like how everyone's pro-slavery, and you say like plenty of other kind of like polarizing shit, like not for or against anything, but just things that will get a reaction out of people, and you do it without just like breaking key. Like you're so so even about it. How do you is that just who you are, just a very even keel, like very like not monotone but very matter of fact statement person, or is this something that you've had to practice for like years to hone it in?
I'd say I'm a little bit like that, but definitely as a performance aspect, yeah, it definitely takes skill, because I mean I think that's, and meaning like I've been doing it for a while, and so yeah, I don't know, I just think it's fun. I mean to me it's kind of doing what you like, and I just think that's the kind of funniest performance to watch, is just someone say something insane up top, and then just the kind of tension of like, how is he going to get out of this? There seems like there's no way for him to justify the thing he just said, and then you do it. I mean, to me, that's kind of the fun thing. It's, I don't know. To me, it's like, I don't know. People think I pick top. Like I've had people like try to talk to me about politics and stuff afterwards, and I have some interest in it from an entertainment standpoint, but I'm not really like political. I'm not really like, I don't have a lot of societal investment per se. It's just, to me, it's just a performance. So to me, I just pick topics, not so much like I believe in this and people need to hear my thoughts. It's just like, for a lot of things, it's like, would you rather see someone juggle 3 balls or, 5 knives that are on fire? So to me, when I say everyone's pro-slavery, which, or whatever, it's more just me bringing out the knives and being like, you want to see if I cut my hand off? I don't think I'm gonna. And so that's more what it's about,
It's called an act. I wish people would realize that. Like when you go to a show, it's an act.
Oh, and it's done so well. Yeah. It's just you just do it really well with just keeping the same composure throughout. And I think I've seen a lot of performers and comedians and even just people talking that like lose it, and it just kind of not that it ruins the performance, but you kind of show your hand, and I don't think I've seen you show your hand yet. But on that note, we do have to keep it moving. We've got a couple more parts to see. Dane, thank you so much for talking about part 3. We'll see you back in about like 5 to 7 minutes after part 4. Same with you, Justin. So we've got up next for us part 4 of our statements, 4 of 6. This one is titled Love, also directed by the magnificent Dane Kissel. We will join him and Justin back in this performance dimension after part 4.
I feel like people are more worried about getting murdered than ever. I don't know if you've noticed that. Maybe it's just the way people talk, but people will be like, I hope I don't get murdered. Ugh. It's like, you won't. You? Mm-mm. You're going to die boring, dude. I hate to break it to you, but it's not going to crush headlines. Not you. But here's the thing. I think that's just a statement of fear because it's not really based in reality. Like, violent crime peaked in the United States in the mid-1970s. Every year after that, it's gone down at least a little bit. So anytime you've been alive since the mid-1970s, you've lived in the safest year in American history. Congratulations. You did it. But I think that's just a statement of fear. I think change breeds fear. I think the biggest change we've had in recent times is technology. Those are the breadcrumbs I follow, at least. That seems how it's connected. People will say things like, take this Uber home late at night. Hope I don't get murdered. Ooh. You won't. Mm-mm. If you're in an Uber late at night, person most likely to get murdered by the Uber driver is the Uber driver. All right, like he's not having a good night. What night? Whatever night you're in there, man. It's not a good job. You know what I mean? Like it's that day for him is slightly worse than the last, slightly better than the next. So, you know, remember to tip and you'll be okay. And even if you don't, you'll already be out of the car. Sometimes I'll have like single female friends and they'll be like, oh, I'm going out with this guy I met on Tinder. Hope I don't get murdered. You won't. No chance. Dates don't murder women. You know who murders women? Husbands. Right? Husbands murder. If you're just fucking strangers, that's the safest you'll ever be. You know what I mean? Like that's... Tinder's not dangerous. Life insurance contracts are dangerous. You know what I mean? But I mean, I get it too. Like, I'll fuck a stranger, but murder? That's personal. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna save that for marriage. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna call me old fashioned, but you know, that's what women gotta worry about. They gotta worry about getting murdered. That's a bummer. Sorry. That's all I can really say. I have a wife. I'm not going to murder her. But I respect her. Because by becoming a wife, I realize statistically she's put herself in danger. You know what I mean? Like, just raw statistics. On an individual level, safe. As a wife, uh-oh. But that's the thing, is now I'm a husband. I have my own stuff. It's not murder. It's my own stuff. It's not even equal, but it's my stuff. As a husband, I have to worry about implications. Is anyone here a husband? Yeah, so you already know. If your wife is supposed to be somewhere and she's not there within 4 hours, you have to go to jail, right? Like you've seen Law and Order. You know how it works, all right? Even if she shows back up, they'll be like, we still think you did it. You're like, did what? She's right here. I don't know, man. Maybe Netflix will make a documentary about it. It's probably your best chance at this point. 6-part series. You'll be home by Christmas. 4-parter? But you got TV credit. You can use that when you get out. That's still good. You know what I mean? That's still good. It doesn't even matter if you're married, man. I was just dating my wife at the time. We're just dating. We're living together. We're living in this apartment. She leaves out the apartment. It's the winter. So she's walking down these stairs outside the apartment. They're a little icy. So she kind of slips, falls, catches the side of her head on this railing going down the stairs. But doesn't hurt too bad. So she just goes to work, comes home. But by the time she gets home, she has this black and blue mark forming under her left eye. And I'm like, that does not look good for me. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a good look. She kind of gets what I'm insinuating throughout the evening, and then she just goes, what? Like, you think people are going to actually think you hit me? Listen, if I go to work tomorrow and someone even brings that up, I'll just tell them exactly what happened. I will just tell them that I slipped and I fell. Yeah, don't tell anybody that, all right? Don't tell anybody that. That sounds so bad, you'd be better off telling people I hit you, but with like a good reason. That's how bad your thing is. Has anyone here ever cheated before in a relationship? No? Oh, yeah. Dude. All right. 3 for 3. 3 for 3. Every show. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. At least got one. Last night was crazy. Last night, like 3 people cheered. Fucking animals. All right. Let's not get crazy. But I get it. Comedy shows, you get a lot of dates. A lot of people don't admit to that. But I think more people have. I think you should cheat. Not currently, but like you should have cheated. You're going to be a good partner because of your cheating. It's a positive note on your record. If you're with someone and they've cheated, good job. You've landed a winner. Let me explain. I was hanging out with my friend Joe, and we have a few drinks, and he starts looking around the bar, and he's like, man, I would love to cheat on my girlfriend tonight. And I was like, it was weird, right? It didn't really make sense. It was kind of out of nowhere, so I just let it pass. He didn't say anything else, so we just let it go, and we moved on. But then like 2-3 more times we're hanging out. He has a few drinks, looks around the bar, and goes, man, I would love to cheat on my girlfriend tonight. So I said to ask him, like, Joe, have you ever cheated on anybody ever? He's like, I got to tell you what, Justin, I never have. I was like, well, yeah, well, that's why you want to do it, because you've never done it. If you've never cheated, it seems awesome. Like, it seems like you're not even you're going to have an affair. There's going to be hotels and secrets, right? Like, they might write a novel about this. People will pick it up at the airport. Like, this is going to be a cool thing. And then you do it, and you're like, it's bad. Like, it's just... You're just guilty the whole time, like before, during, and after. Like, it's never good. Your relationship starts to crumble, even if the other person doesn't find out, just because of how bad you feel and just, just the foundation you've broken. But you don't know that until you do it. I think cheating's a lot like chicken pox. You should do it when you're younger so you don't get it when you're older. You know what I mean? Like, now, some people get mad when I say that. They're like, dude, I know this guy. He cheated all the time when he was younger. Now he's older. He still cheats. It's like, yeah, there's going to be a few cases of shingles. That doesn't mean you throw out the whole theory. Okay? Until we get a cheating vaccine, I think it's the best thing we got. You know what I mean?
All right, we are back. We're back with Dane Kissel and Justin Golak. We don't need to read Dane's bio again because we just heard it. We're all back. We've got our.
You can read it again. It's okay.
I mean, that'll cut into our interview time if you want to talk less about your wonderful piece. That's fine by me. I can draw on forever. If you want to hear it read again, you'll have to join the Zoom call after the show, and I will happily run through everyone's bios over and over again.
I'll cameo it.
There we go. But we've got, this is your second piece. This is the second one of 2 that you shot, correct?
Correct.
And then, so we had the mountains for part 3, and for part 4, Love, we are on the Vegas Strip. I saw like some split screens again this time. I know with Timmy and Justin, kind of the inspiration for that was like 127 hours. Was that similar inspiration for you, or did you like find somewhere else to pull that from?
No, it was an original idea for me. I had the idea first, even before, like years ago, even before 127 hours came out. But,
so it actually stole from you.
Yeah. No, I want to commend Michael, Timmy, and Justin too, because we were on a chain. As we were editing all these kind of at the same time, we kept uploading different versions of it and getting these, everybody's kind of giving their feedback, and it was all like really positive feedback. And not like anything that was like negative. It was done in a very good professional way. So I really appreciate it. Like, that's what made this project so much fun to work on was how awesome Michael and Timmy and Justin were about giving feedback in the right way, where I wasn't just like, there's not once was I reading any of the feedback that was like negative and thinking, well, I'm not friends with Timmy anymore. So
like, fuck these guys.
No, it was all, yeah. No, it was all, I felt like it made all the editing choices a lot better, because there's a lot of stuff we shot for this particular Love that I initially wanted to put in it, but once I edited, because I put myself in it at one point when the part where he's talking about how his buddy was wanting to cheat on his girlfriend, and so we did a thing where like I mimicked him saying that, and it didn't really work as much as I wanted it to. It was kind of like a hat on the hat kind of thing. So we replaced that with the inside of the casino kind of footage, but yeah, I just thought it made it better. So
on the topic of casinos, how the hell were you able to film inside a casino? I thought they were pretty firm on that. I thought they were very quick to boot people with cameras.
I think it was the timing, because we that particular part inside, it was late. It was probably around 1 or 2 a.m. I think, if I remember right. It just felt lawless. It felt like nobody cared what we did. That was the same feeling walking down the strip. And it was that's what made it more fun too.
We also shot, we shot in on Fremont Street, which is like most people call it like Old Vegas. It's like it's like off the strip. It's just north and west of the strip. It's like right nearby, but it's just another strip of casinos. I actually like it a lot better. I think it's a more fun hang overall. I think the strip has basically turned into like a mall that you can gamble at. I don't think it's really fun. But I think we're at the Plaza. I think that's because that's where we stayed. I think that's where we shot the casino stuff. And so it is just it's a little more, it's not as, it's just a little more kind of a divey spot. And yeah, we literally I was like, Dane, we're just going to go play some games, just kind of stand back and shoot us. So kind of like the shooting at the House of Blues, it was like, if we're not acting crazy, I don't think anyone's going to say anything. And in worst case, just say, if someone says, stop filming, I was told Dane, I was like, just stop filming. It kind of like, like we talked about before, I'm like, if you got a couple things that you can throw in to just establish that we're at a casino, that's plenty. So if someone tells you to stop filming, just stop filming. I'm sure we got enough. So yeah, it worked out pretty good.
So +1 for ask for forgiveness, not permission. So if anyone's out there taking notes,
Always.
just fucking do it. Just fucking do it, and then say sorry afterwards if someone says shit.
Yeah. All they're looking for is cheaters. So all they're looking for is cheaters. That's all they care about. So we were at that automatic craps table. I don't know what you could use a camera for. Probably again something like looking at dealers' blackjack cards or something. So again, like also when you're over by the machines, I think it's a lot. That's all. They don't. They're not really trying to protect like their intellectual property or something. They just don't want you cheating and stealing money. So as long as you don't look like you're doing that, it's also a little easier. So
for sure. So in this part, Justin, like your comedy talks, you got like the unholy trifecta going on with your bit in this piece. We've got cheating, we've got affairs, we've got abuse, we've got murder, we've got like everything and all of that going on. And I know you were talking with Dane and planned this Vegas trip. Was that kind of intentional to have all of this like unholy unseen shit be kind of associated with like the grungy old Vegas where like everything goes and what stays in what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas? Was this intentional on your part, or was just this kind of like serendipity, everything worked out really well?
Yeah, if you made that connection, that's awesome, because I did not when I thought of the idea. So hell yeah, extra layers for bonus. But no, I was more just thinking like the general concept again, like everything kind of feeds into the next thing. So again, like not to spoil the next part, but I was thinking of like love, like early love in context to like mature love. And so I was thinking just like, like the Vegas Strip, just hanging out with someone you're dating or whatever in Vegas. It's just such a fun thing. So I was more thinking of that, just the funness of this couple in the film, who is my actual wife. I was like, that would just be like a fun place to show that, just all these lights and all this stuff going around. I think it would just be fun to capture that. And that's why we did, with the split screen, I think most of what you're talking about, that's actually just like self-facing cell phone footage that me and my wife Jackie took. Because I was just like, I just told her when we got there, I'm like, let's just go out the night before in the same clothes that we're going to wear on the shoot day with Dane, because we got a night early. And I was like, let's just take some footage of us on our cell phone, because to me, that's what like modern love is, cell phone footage. So I was like, let's just pretend we're just taking shots for Instagram and we're 24 years old. What would we do? And so, yeah, that was the vibe, but I'm glad you got extra stuff from it. Hell yeah.
No, pretty cool. Can call that my pretentious art moment. Normally those are reserved for Michael, but I got one in tonight. And on that note, we do need to keep it moving to our last two parts of your statements series, Justin. Up next, and also thank you, Dane, for joining us these last two parts. We'll have a chat at the end with all the directors, and we'll see you there. But for now, we've got to move on to part number 5 of 6 of these shorts. It's titled Marriage, and it's actually directed by none other than Michael J. Garrity. So let's get that queued up and get that rolling.
I am married, no kids, which you can do if you didn't know that. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool if you do it that way. If you're married without kids, man, it's great. You're pretty much just hanging out with your buddy all day. If you do that, just farting in front of each other, fucking. It's not bad. It's pretty great. Plus, all my money is disposable. You'd know that if you hung out with me for even a day. You'd be like, does he think it's garbage? Like, does he think it's... He's treating it like literal trash. So, Dude, I got a targeted ad the other day online for a fanny pack that looked like the WWE Heavyweight Championship belt. I didn't even have to think about it. I was like, that's mine. In 3 to 5 business days, that's mine. Now, me and my wife don't have kids, but we do share finances. So I was like, honey, it's fanny pack. Looks like the WWE Heavyweight Championship belt. I'm going to get it, okay? She doesn't have kids either, so she was just like, do they have a women's title version? I was like, it's already in the cart. It's going to be your birthday gift, but we'll just do new gifts. Do you mind if I pay for the rush shipping so it gets here before we leave for the Dominican Republic? That's my life. I've been on vacation recently. And just so you don't think I'm bragging about wealth, I'm barely doing okay, and it took a lot of work to get here. Like, it's been a struggle, but I don't have kids. If you don't have kids, you couldn't go on vacation once a year. If you don't have kids, all it takes is 2 full-time-ish jobs, and you live in a bad school district. That's really all it takes, you know what I mean? It's not even a bad neighborhood. It's very safe. They just don't have microscopes, and I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Like, I do not care. Been together. I've been married a little over 2 years now, and I feel like that's around the time people start asking you things like, "Ooh, married 2 years. Is the magic gone? Huh? Is the magic gone? What do you mean? Is the sex still weird? You know what I mean? Just ask your question." Ask your question, because those are 2 different questions. What do you want to know? Is the sex still weird? No. Is the magic gone? The magic? The magic. I have a wife. Do you know what that means? That means I can come home any day of the week, covered in blood, look my wife in the eyes and say, if anyone asks you where I was today from 2 to 5 p.m., you say here. And she'll say, okay. So, seems pretty magical to me. You know what I mean? And it's magical for her, too, because she don't even have to know where I was. She just knows whatever I did, it was for our family. All right? So, yeah, we do anal less, and it's better. All right? Plus, sex is just different when you get older. And we started marriage, I think, old. Old for marriage, not old. But, like, I'm 35, she's 33. We got married 2 years ago. So we're in our 30s. I think it's a little older for marriage. So sex is just different. It's not better or worse. It's not a value judgment. Things just change. Like the other day, me and my wife were just driving around. We're talking about sex. And she describes my dick as consistent. It was the best compliment I ever got in my life. You know what I mean? Like, I almost wept openly in that car. That's what you want to hear at this age. She was saying my dick is like a good relief pitcher. You know what I mean? Like, if your pussy's got 2 on it in the 7th, I can get you out of that jam. You know what I mean? Call me in. I only got 2 pitches, but I throw them well. You know what I mean? Tell the closer to sit down. I got 2 innings in me. No, that's how it's supposed to go. I keep doing baseball references till no one's on board. So don't be nervous. That's how that goes. I think pegging is weird. It's probably my boldest stance I'll take this evening. That's why I save it for the end, just in case you hop off board. I think pegging's weird. I do. Just can't imagine it. Look, if I ever want to get fucked in the ass, I'm not going to look at my wife across the bedroom, 5'3", 130 pounds, and think that she can fuck me in the ass the way I deserve. You know what I mean? I'm going to give, you know what I mean? I'm going to give that responsibility to an ass-fucking virgin when I live in a city with a boys' town. No, I respect myself. You know what I mean?
Hey.
Okay, we're back. Sorry, he's the man with the controls. Normally he gives me a little point when it's time for me to start talking, but guess I missed that cue. I'm sorry for making the pretentious art joke, okay?
I've got so many controls that I have to change to just get it on and be here. I forgot to give the point.
But that was part 5. That was marriage. I feel like I'm obligated to start this conversation with Michael. What's your views on marriage here, buddy?
I don't know. You tell me.
It's been burning at me ever since he made that, got asked to do that part. But more seriously, jokes aside, this one looks like it has a really intense storyline throughout. Michael, I know you and Justin collaborated on this, so maybe could you both kind of speak to that storyline, just what your thoughts were behind it, any like adaptations we needed to make until we get to this final product.
Yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, I think Justin, you had this idea of you and Jackie like cooking or baking, and there was just something not quite right about it. And then you had this reveal that they killed the couple who lived in that apartment or that house, and were kind of role playing in the position of in an idealistic family. And you brought to the table just inspiration of Natural Born Killers, and I think that was the one, at least that I worked on, that you had the most fleshed out, that I was just like, yes, I want to do that exactly as pitched. Let's make it fucking work.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. Yeah, like everything he said. I think Natural Born Killers, that's like one of my favorite movies, and also I think it's like probably the best love story ever captured. And I think when I think of marriage, I'm like, dude, it's totally like this. It's totally like being on the run as a bunch of serial killers, because I think being married is fucking dark, but I just like dark shit. Like I hope like that's a positive like I love being married, because I'm like, dude, love is for babies, marriage is for like weird adult people. So I love being married. Being married is tight as hell, because you're essentially just being like, yeah, I'm gonna either watch someone die that I love or make someone real sad by dying. And you're like, man, this shit's wild. This is not love. This is something deeper and weirder, and I'm in for it. So yeah, so I kind of wanted to make that part heavily contrast the previous part, which is titled Love. So
well, and I think with this one, I think with this one, this was one of the ones that visually conceptually matched the comedy also the most conceptually, in that you're talking about marriage in kind of a non-traditional way. It's not necessarily the sunshine and roses. We're not trying to fit into that perfect cookie cutter role of what we believe a marriage to be. And so then visually we are also showing a very non-traditional, kind of very fucked up relationship in like the Natural Born Killers. We're a bunch of serial killers on the loose, and we are literally murdering the traditional marriage and taking liberties with that, and like, this is our love. Like, love is weird, and it's only what you make it. So long as you and your partner are happy, that's what matters.
Yeah, and I think that I mean, we hear it in what you say, Justin, but also that visual, it pairs really well with your concept of like, it is what it is, and in the best way possible. Like normally people say, oh, it is what it is when they're talking about shitty things, but like, it is what it is in the kindest way. On the topic of like being married and a partnership and everything like that, Justin, how does Jackie feel about like being part of your comedy? I mean, I know I've heard like every response under the sun. Like some partners like fucking hate it. They're like, don't even mention that I exist. Some of them are like, no, you have to mention me. Like, I mean, obviously she's okay with it because like you mention her frequently, and you have her like on video with you and everything like that. But like, did you guys have a discussion about it ahead of time, or did it just kind of morph into that?
no, I don't think she cares. I mean, honestly, I feel like any woman would rather have a song written about her than a joke, but I still think I don't think she minds. It's never really come up, so I don't think she cares. Like, she's really just generally and genuinely supportive, so I think she just sees it as me doing something I like. I think she honestly just parses through the specifics, whether it's about her or not. And as far as on camera, I mean, I think it's twofold, both me and her. I think first part is kind of what we talked about with Michael in the first part. I'm like, I don't think I'm good enough to act like I love someone who I don't actually love. So let's cast Jackie. And then when I asked Jackie to do it, I was like, well, you can do it, or I can just like cast an actress, but I'm going to basically have to be like hugging and kissing this stranger. And Jackie's a psycho. So she was like, I'll do it. I'll for sure do it. And I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. And it was fun, you know?
I was gonna say, yeah, the chat's like Jackie was incredible in this. Like, I
great.
agree. I think you two like worked really well together, which I feel like, especially when you're with the person in real life, and then you're put in, even if you are playing like partners or husband wife or a duo on screen, like there could still be that awkwardness, or like you just can't work together in that setting. And it's just really cool to see you two like mesh so well in there, and then like just the commentary that you have about being married, which is also about her. What are you thumbs downing, my friend? What are you thumbs downing?
Larry Bird is like, can we please get a thumbs up or thumbs down on drunk driving from the artists?
Oh, okay. I thought you were thumbs downing. I thought you were thumbs downing on me being like, Justin and Jackie, y'all are awesome. I was gonna be like, hold up here. We are running.
For me.
Go ahead. Got a sideways and two thumbs down. Last thing I want to ask before we keep it moving, because we have our last part next, and then a chat with all of the directors together just about the project as a whole. Michael, how did you shoot this technically? Because if I recall correctly, you had digital and film all together in one, and just give me like in like 100 words or less, preferably less than 50 words. You like to get verbose.
So about half of this was digital, half of this was on 16 millimeter color film, and this came from conversations with Justin and myself. I wanted to shoot the whole thing on film, but Justin was like, well, we're kind of playing with a fantasy world and then the truth of the situation, so maybe the fantasy world is digital, the highly polished, like looking like a pristine, perfect white picket fence marriage. Digital is perfect, digital is clean. So we'll shoot the fantasy digitally, and then the natural born killers, gritty, raw, murder, bloody stuff we'll shoot on film. And that was kind of the formalist conception of it, was anything that was a fantasy we shot digitally, and then anything that was true we shot on film.
Yeah, and because the dichotomy I was thinking of was not necessarily like Leave It to Beaver verse Natural Born Killer. My inspiration for the fantasy part, or whatever you want to call it, was commercials. I was like, I wanted to seem just like bloodless. I wanted it to seem like they're in a house that no one lives in. Just it's like a set somewhere, and I wanted it to seem more phony and not necessarily like making fun of like traditional marriage, or just more of like just like the phoniness of certain things, more of like the depiction of marriage than kind of putting it against other people's marriages or something like that.
Yeah, that was I could go on for like eons about this part, because like I love the story, I love the comedy, I love the execution. Like I think in my biased opinion, it was my favorite of the 6 in totality, just with like the story and how it was shot and like the visuals of it. But we've got to get moving on to our last part of the statement series. Again, if you had a question for Michael or Justin or Dane or Timmy when they were on earlier and it didn't get answered, or you were too shy to ask, feel free to pop into the Zoom call after the show. We'll be hanging out and chatting, so you have an opportunity to ask then. But until then, let's check out our last part. This is part 6. It's titled Goodbye, and it's also directed by Michael J. Garrity. So we will join Justin and Michael after we see our last part of statements.
I'm not suicidal, but I don't have a zest for life. You know what I mean? Some people will take life any way it comes. You know what I mean? Like they'll just take it. Not me. I don't need it that bad. You know what I mean? I don't need it that bad. Like, do you know there are people in this country every day that get sentenced to long jail terms and then just go to jail? What are you doing? You don't have to do that. You know, if a judge was ever just like, Justin Golak, you are sentenced to 28 years in prison. I'm like, I'm sentenced to no years in prison. I'm going to kill myself. You know what I mean? It's crazy you thought I'd just go to prison because you're wearing a robe or whatever. No, I'm out. People that build bunkers, what are you doing? It's time to go. We're all going. We're all going. I don't know. If I ever see a mushroom cloud in the distance, I'll be running towards it, huffing air. Like, it's time to go. We're all heading out. I don't mind life, but I like it how it is now or slightly worse for short periods of time. That's how I like it. I don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need it if it means that it's guarding beans with a shotgun. That's fine. I've had enough. I'll go with everybody else. People with stage 4 cancer that get chemo, what are you doing? You're wasting it. You know what I mean? Like, there's 12-year-olds with leukemia that need it. You know what I mean? I don't know if we're running out of it, but let's be safe. Just in case. Now, to be fair, that's not really the patient's fault. That's probably the doctor's fault. They probably made that call, which is borderline malpractice. You got a person in front of you with stage 4 cancer, and you prescribe them chemo. With that same prescription pad, you could prescribe them cocaine. Like, what do you do? Can we start doing a fun 2 weeks instead of a sad 6 months? Can we? More of a holistic approach, I call it. I am not suicidal, but I do think if I get to go out by killing myself, I will have succeeded. Like, that will be a good life. I will think my life has been a success. I think that's and I'm talking about the good one, where you're older, you lived a great life, and it's just your time. Maybe you have some health problems or something else comes up on you. You get to call your shot. That should be indisputably the best way to go. It's weird that it's even controversial, because that should be like, oh, you won. You made it to the end. Good job. Because most people don't get that. Most people don't get that. You know, they smoked or they drove bad or they got hit by a bus. You know, like, most of us here are going to die scared in a grocery store. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how it's going to end. This is how it's going to end. So if by choices and luck you make it to the end, you get to go out in a bed on your favorite day. That should be the prize. And so that's what I'm planning for, hopefully. And so I'm trying to put a plan in, you know, have like a plan set. And I think that all the answers for everything are already around us. I think all the answers exist. You just got to aggregate them. So you just got to look at different stuff. So obviously I'm a person. So I was like, all right, I'll look at older humans, see how we treat them. And not great. Not a good place to look for end of life stuff. And then I started looking at pets, and I was like, pets. Exactly. We put them down because we love them. Unlike our grandparents, we love our pets, so we treat them great at the end. It's a kind thing to do. We all think that way when we do it. That's what I want to do. So luckily, I'm thinking about how to do it, and I'm listening to this radio show, and it's a vet, and he's taking calls from listeners, and he takes a call from this woman, and she goes, I have a dog, and he's getting older. Think about putting him down. But here's the thing. We think if we wait too long to put him down, well, now he's suffering, and that's cruel. But if we do it too soon, he still had life to live, and that's also cruel. So how do we know when is the right time to put our dog down? The vet says, I get this question all the time, and here's what I tell people. List your dog's 3 favorite things. When you can only do one, it's time to let him go. Dude, perfect system. That's my system. Like, sign me up. That's what I'm doing. I just need someone to execute on it. I told you I have a wife. She has my top 3. My top 3 are hanging out, shooting the shit, eating, and coming. Those are my top 3. You know what I mean? So let's say something happens, an accident or some medical issue, and I go nonverbal, but I can still eat macaroni and cheese and get hand jobs. I'll do that. Like, I'll do that for a while. Like, I'll do that for a while. But as soon as a nurse comes in and puts in a feeding tube, you grab the nearest pillow and you lean in because I've had a good run, but it's time for me to go.
And thank you for the point. We are back now. Before I ask any questions about this part, I gotta check in. Justin, guarding beans with a shotgun. You good? Like, it's been a year. You good?
I'm fine, man. I don't own a shotgun, but no one's come for my beans either, so we're all good.
Good. I mean, all throughout this entire album, you've just had so many like nail on the head comments that applied to like pandemic times, and just the guarding beans with the shotgun. Like, I think that's what got me through all of the quarantine bullshit, is just chuckling, like, because you recorded this and shot everything and produced this whole show before we went into lockdown, so it's not like this came about because the pandemic was happening. So just hearing you like make all of these like broad statements that apply to the pandemic gave me like a morbid chuckle about it. But more to the point of this, of me asking y'all questions. I mean, I was with you, both of you, on this shoot. I know how it went, but can you both enlighten me to what went down to make this happen? Because it's nuts.
Do you want to start, Michael?
Sure, I guess. Strangely enough, this one, I think, required the most planning, and we just shot it on GoPros. It was just 2 GoPros, so it wasn't shooting on the 16mm film where you only get so many takes. It was shooting on GoPros. That was the most difficult, because we had to attach them to cars, and you could not see what you were shooting, so you had to mount it on the car in such a way where you think you're going to get the shot you want. Like, you can frame it up in the parking lot and then hope for the duration of the drive that you get all of the looks that you need. It was the 2 coldest nights of 2020.
Yeah, of 2020.
It was of 2020. It was like the last thing we were able
shot?
to do in 2020. The 2 coldest nights of 2020. We shot from just before sunset right to sunrise. And we met in like West Loop, UIC area. Justin rented a Tesla. I had my Toyota Camry, my 2000 Toyota Camry, and we had a starting point, set up 2 GoPros, did a lap down 294 to Lower Wacker, down Lakeshore Drive, went right to the lake, changed the cameras, did the drive in reverse while filming so that we could get a different angle and could run it in reverse so it still looked like we were driving north. Moved the cameras and did that lap. We just kept doing that back and forth as many times as we could for 2 full nights.
I wasn't saying anything.
Yeah, it was pretty great. I think the only thing was, kind of, since this is the last part, kind of connecting through lines, it's like, when you're working on something, with like not really a budget, you're kind of like, what can we do that looks great but doesn't really cost money? And I was like, well, shooting a driving scene in Chicago would be awesome, but how are you going to do, like, there's always traffic on the LSD, so how are you going to get like cool shots on Lakeshore Drive? And I was like, well, I guess you just got to shoot at 4 a.m. if shooting, because I had driven Uber before, and so I knew, like, yeah, 4 a.m. it's dead, but it's only dead for like an hour or two, because then at 6 a.m. it starts to, the traffic builds up. So I'm like, you got from like 4 to 6 a.m., 3 to 5 a.m. ish. So yeah, I think it looks great, but yeah, it was basically working through the night 2 nights in a row in like the coldest nights. It was like in the negatives. It was really cold, but yeah, it worked out great. And shout out to Stephanie, the hand extra that seals my face up. That was Stephanie in my coat and gloves. So shout out to the cameo on that. Movie magic. So.
Oh yeah, and some steady second car drive in there to get those side shots of the Tesla. No, it was a blast to be there, not having to come up with the ideas for everything. It was nice kind of being along for the ride. But I think like this and Dean's piece with the drones, I think were the most like unique shots for your statements piece. Not that every other shot was ununique or uninteresting, but I think and especially Michael, like this seems a little bit outside of your normal wheelhouse for someone that shoots in motion picture and analog media, to be given like, here's an ultra modern car, here's a GoPro, go. Like how did you deal with that, like just kind of working outside of your comfort zone?
Well, yeah, so like I said, I think this one almost required more planning than shooting on film, just because we had to set the cameras up and then set them on a journey is essentially what we did. Was we set up the cameras and set up on a journey and had to hope that we got the shots that we wanted and that we needed to be able to cut it together and tell the story. So I relied on those film skills, those celluloid film skills of trying to pre-visualize the shots, trust the math, trust the preparation, and then hope and keep your fingers crossed that it comes together at the end. But like, because we were doing these laps and I had planned like, okay, these are the shots I want to make sure I have so that I can edit it together. But we'd set up the cameras, and then Stephanie, you were driving, and I'm just in the passenger seat going through my binder like, okay, did we have this? Do we get this shot? Is this gonna cut together? Like, what am I gonna set up on the next one? Daylight's coming, we're running out of time, I have to cut this shot, we're not gonna frame it like this. So it's like, it was less like actively shooting and like shooting in your head. It was like making the movie in your head.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got some really unique shots, especially like with the time of day. It's not really a normal view of Chicago. So I commend you, Justin, for having the concept in your mind that you wanted to execute, and I commend you, Michael, for making it happen and also being insane enough to agree to a fucking overnight shoot in February in Chicago, where you're going to be standing outside getting things prepped for a while. Just I think it all worked really well together with as well as with Justin's commentary. Like, again, I think Justin, you had really good as loosey goosey as you say you are with each of your parts. You did a really good job with giving like the right kind of direction so that the visuals that your partners came up with complemented your stand up really well and gave like this really unique vision. With that being said, we are at the end of our 5-minute time for this little for part 6, which is goodbye. So up next, we're going to have a little bit of a longer interview with Michael, Justin, Dane, and Timmy, and myself kind of facilitating the conversation. So again, if you have questions for any of our directors, if you have questions for Justin, drop them in the chat. I'll do my best to keep an eye out. Also, if you have questions that you'd rather ask them in person, you are more than welcome to pop into the Zoom call after this longer chat. I know this is a longer show than we normally do, but this is also a longer production than we've had on here before and more involved. And I've found it really interesting to pick the brains of both the directors and you, Justin, from both angles as a producer and the comedian. So let's get our group queued up. Michael, can you get it all set up and let me know when we need to hit some buttons on my end?
Oh yeah, here we go.
Is a giant leap before all time. Together we can make it through, one step at a time. Together we can make it through, one step at a time. Together we can make it through, one step at a time.
We are back with all of our directors in this giant dimension. We're all going to be chatting about the project. I think it went really well. It works really well as individual parts, works really well as an overall theme. Justin, you got this really unique visual to go with your stand-up. It's not just you filming you on stage. We got some interesting things to look at. So I think to kick off this larger discussion, I think just like Justin, how did you approach each of these? Like, what made you decide, let me reach out to Michael, let me reach out to Dane, let me reach out to Timmy, and then all of the directors, like, what were your initial thoughts when Justin pitched this idea to you?
Yeah, I mean, I just like working with people that I like and that I think do cool stuff. Like, I don't know. I just like, I think especially like with Dane, we worked together before, so I think we had a good rapport. Michael, we never really like worked together on a project, but I liked his stuff. And then even with like Timmy, like Timmy's like a good example of someone who's like, and he was like very willing to do it. So it's not like I really had to convince him, but I think he was just, like a couple times. He's like, I'm not really like a director. Like I'll do it if I have to. And I'm like, and I was just thinking like, dude, your stuff always looks good. So I'm not saying like you should be a director, like act like obviously do what you want. But I'm like, in terms of like this specific project, I'm like, yeah, I mean, your stuff looks good though. So I don't really care if you're a director or not. Like I love the way your stuff looks. And especially like, I don't know. I think his stuff is just, like him doing kind of like practical stuff just looks good because he's usually doing like sketches, stuff that's very like grounded. And so I knew that first part was kind of just a day in the life. So I was like, I think he'll do this really good. So yeah, I mean, honestly, like I like all these guys as people, but I also think they're talented. So it wasn't like that hard to just be like, hey, you guys want to do this? And they're like, yeah, I'm like, all right, let's party. So yeah.
I mean, over to the directors, I was like, when Justin came up to you, like previous friendship or not, or previous working relationship or not, like when he was like, hey, I've got an idea, I want to make a film to go with my stand-up, like, what were your initial thoughts? Was it like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Or like, oh snap, like, let's go, I already know what I'm going to do. Like, what was the first thing that came to your mind?
For me, it was just like, I've already worked with this guy twice. Do we really want to do this? Vegas. Okay. Yeah. I'm in.
Yeah, it was really easy for me to like he always is so funny, has great ideas, and I can't remember specifically, but I feel like we have collaborated on something of his. Oh yeah, his Gear Talk, and he has this way of whoever he collaborates with, he really inspires ownership within them. And so this was one full piece with different directors, and it still felt like there was that through line of Justin with his friends, and I was not like, oh fuck, what the fuck is this? It was like, this is super interesting, 100%, let's go. I'm not a director, but if you want, I would love to do it.
Yeah, I think honestly, this was... go ahead, Justin.
I was just going to say, I mean, and honestly, too, at the end of the day, like, it's not only just do I want people that like my stand-up to be a part of it when I'm working on a stand-up project, but I'm also like, just practically, I'm like, you're going to have to listen to these bits dozens of times while you're editing it. And so I think
that was easy to do.
Yeah, I think my people who like my stand-up, I think funnels down into a very select group. And so I just knew that all three of these guys had like mentioned, whether being nice or not, that they liked my stand-up. So I was like, I'd also rather like work with somebody that like likes the stand-up regardless of like what kind of project we're doing. So
I've been faking it the whole time.
Hey man, hey, I'm sorry. I made Dane work on like 3 things with me, so I'm sorry, but
no, that's why I keep wanting to come back. It genuinely, I think you are one of my favorite stand-ups, and like anytime I go to like the Comedy Store out here in LA, or see any stand-up, I'm like, man, I would love to see Justin up here because he's so much funnier than this guy. This guy doesn't deserve to be even in the belly room. Justin,
thanks, buddy.
Yeah, like I love it. It's good stuff.
Yeah, for me, I think it's hard. Just like everything that Timmy and Dane have been saying is like what Timmy's talking about, the collaborative aspects of it. Is I've worked with a lot of comedians in Chicago, and whether it's a writer or another director or a producer, everybody's kind of got their own thing that they're trying to get you to work into. And this was probably one of the most collaborative things I've actually worked on. Like, Justin was like, I just asked to be in it and shoot it in black and white. Otherwise, like, go, and it felt like I was able to explore my ideas but also satisfy Justin's ideas as well, and that it wasn't ego driven. It was truly collaboratively driven. And I've been a fan of Justin's comedies the first time I ever saw him perform. Like, he's got such a unique perspective. So even before he pitched the idea of this, I was like, yes, I want to be a part of this. I love Justin's comedy. I love his brain. I need to be a part of this brand and his ideas. I want to associate myself with that. And I think the first pitch, though, of this was he wanted to try and bring cool to comedy. That comedy is often still seen as like the jester, the court jester, that it's people being goofy and we laugh at them because they're goofy, not because they're cool or they provide something of value to society outside of a laugh. And that really resonated with me because especially shooting like shorts and sketches with comedians in Chicago, not that it doesn't have value, but when you're trying to shoot those, it's harder to be more cinematic about it because you're shooting in service of the joke. So it was refreshing to be able to use that visual artistry as a way to complement a joke rather than underline the punchline.
Yeah, and I think like I always had a chip on my shoulder back. Like, I feel like I got a little bit of like, just because it's a smaller city, I got some press coverage and some like local stuff when I was still in Ohio. And you'd meet with the photographer and they'd want to take your picture and you'd just be like standing there just like, hey, this is me. And they'd be like, why don't you do something goofy or something? And I'm like, I don't care. Like, it's not even like an ego thing, but I'm like, like no one's going to be happy when they come to a show if I do something goofy, because they're going to be like, this guy's not goofy. What is this? Is it? And I feel like that's all you can do. You can either look goofy or you can look angry in a leather jacket while smoking. Those are like the only two vibes you're able to give. And I was like, can't we just be like, I don't know, like a musician? I know that's kind of the heck thing. All comics want to be musicians. All musicians want to be comics. But like, can't we just be like aesthetically pleasing in a just general way? Like, does it always have to be like over the top silly or like, just like, I'm just telling you truth, brother? It's like, I'm not really either of those. And I think those are very narrow paths too. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that like you also showcase that with kind of like that even keel, that matter of fact statement. Like, I mean, it plays to the literal name of the series, statements. It's like you're just making these statements. You're not getting upset over them. You're not saying like there's no call to action of like we need to fucking change the way we are as human beings. It's just like they're just statements. They are just things that are. On the topic of like your own work and seeing it and creating it, looking back, since it's been a full year since this got released, it's been a full year since anybody's touched it, edited it, been elbow deep in the inner workings of it. If looking back and seeing what you did a year ago, like what are your thoughts on your work now? Because I know when you're editing it, like you play the same little like bit of Justin speaking over and over again to the point where it stops becoming any intelligible words because you're trying to edit the visual or line something up. But like now that you've had a time away from that, like what do you think about what you created?
Sure, I can start.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, does anyone want to start? So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I never got tired of listening to him over and over, and I've edited things for a very, very long time, so I'm used to that. And it wasn't a horrible thing to listen to. You would think it would be, but it, Justin, it was not as bad as you would think. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So yes, you're in it though, and you're seeing it over and over, and you cannot see it with new eyes. And so I was talking to Michael just, a little bit earlier. When you're in the middle of editing it, you are always doubting yourself. You're like, is this even good? Like, is this coming off well? Those little thoughts creep in from time to time as you're doing it. So being a year removed, it looks better than I thought at the time. And not just with feeling that with mine, but since it was a project as a whole, we did our individual ones, but we had 3 other people to share our cuts with. And so we all collaborated by giving some notes and really positive notes. I think Dane was talking about that earlier. And so the whole thing looks better than I remember at that time. So that's what the huge difference for me rewatching this a year later. It was like, that was really awesome. Good job, Justin Golak.
Thanks, buddy. Good job to you. I think that's what I got from rewatching it, because I haven't really watched it really long form like that in a while. And I think one of the kind of goals, like an overall goal, not like for the individual parts, like an overall goal, I think I told to the guys as I was like, I would like everyone to come away from this with a favorite part that's different. So like that was kind of like, and that's kind of what I reappreciated rewatching all 6 back to back. I was like, man, these really are all very different, and you could see it all appealing to different types of people. And honestly, through the last year, that's how it's played out. Like I've had many people come up to me and no one's liked the same part. I mean, they've all liked it as a whole, but everyone's had different favorites. And even though it was great, like I posted on Instagram today or Tuesday promoting the show, and I submitted the parts as shorts to different film festivals. I just picked like, which one I think would do the best in whatever the film festival was, and I'd submit it. And, I ended up getting to like 4 out of 10 or something like that. And, when I was able to message the guys as I was getting accepted, I'm like, you all got in one. Like everyone got in at least one, so it's like, it showed that they all had different like strengths and all appealed to different stuff. So that was my favorite part watching it all in total, was like, man, the mission of everyone doing something new, or sorry, something different than the other person, but it played in its own little world. I love that. So I'm glad that worked out.
Yeah, I think it all like all the parts, despite being shot by different people using different techniques, they all tied together really well. And I think that really speaks to your expertise or your insight as a director and a producer. Like, yes, it was your stand-up, so that was a common thread, but you also gave the right amount of direction and nudging to each of your directors to get everybody to work together while still maintaining their individuality. On the topic of favorite short of the series, what's y'all's favorite part? We've got 6 to choose from. Just like snap decision.
Oh yeah, my favorite part was marriage. Michael knocked it out of the park with it, just because like that was such a creative way to do that section. And yeah, that Natural Born Killers vibe was like dead on in the tone. Loved it.
That's my favorite too. And Jackie Mancy. Woo!
Oh yeah. Every time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that was my favorite, as like given the concept of what Justin set forth to try and accomplish. I think marriage is like the best like culmination of that, like combining short film with stand-up comedy, different visual aspects. But I think in figuring out what works best, I think Goodbye worked best as like we're listening to stand-up and we're watching a thing. And I think that came from like watching your early cuts, Timmy and Dane, of how you chose to bring like cool to comedy by following Justin and focusing on these cool shots. Because I came in late to shoot Goodbye, and so I'd already had the benefit of seeing some other voices on this, and I had already done my take on it. So then I came in to shoot Goodbye, and I had all of this input, and it was like, and now I could take from everybody's piece and put it into Goodbye. And I think then Justin has even taken that afterward, and out of virtue or necessity of being in quarantine, Justin, you've been experimenting with putting your stand-up to visuals, and I think it's been this ever-evolving piece, and now we're here with the Open Studio. So I think that's my favorite part, is the whole process and how this has continued to evolve, the collaborative nature of it, and how we've been able to work together and spawn new art and become better artists.
Yeah, I would say I think 6 is my favorite. I as a creator, like, so, because like when I rewatch them as like a fan, like if I was just like removing myself from being a part of it, I really do, and I'm not even trying to be nice, I like different parts of all of them. Like I think the editing that Timmy did, it just I love watching it. I think the drone shots with Dane look amazing, and I agree like with what everyone said about marriage, how I'm like, as this is probably the most conceptually kind of sound of all of them, so I'm like, I really am genuinely like blown away by parts of all it, just as an observer. But so the only reason I pick 6 is as the creator of the project, I'm like, this is the one that I think like I can take the most from and create like smaller kind of new art stuff, which is like Michael said, I've been trying to do on like Instagram during the pandemic. And yeah, I don't know, my inspiration for that one, I just remember I was like, yeah, it was like doing like a music video more style, like very kind of pared down. And I just remember, because I had that idea of like a music video for stand-up, and I was like, I think if I'm going to do that on any part, it should be part 6, because it's like the darkest humor of all the acts. So I'm like, I should have like the kind of most candy coated visuals to kind of balance it out. So I thought that worked out really well. And yeah, I think my only note to like Michael when we were shooting in terms of like feeling notes, like feeling board notes, I was like, you just got to shoot this dumb, especially because I know how he's such a brilliant filmmaker and he cares about that. I was like, you got to shoot this bro-y as hell.
It's okay.
No, I don't even mean pretentious because, like, I mean, like I said, like with marriage, it worked. Like with marriage, I wanted that, so it's not a negative thing. But I was like, if you shoot this like marriage, it won't look how I want it, or not how I want it, but like how I'm envisioning it. I'm like, you got to shoot this like a fucking bro. I was like, I don't know if you got to pack a chaw or drink a PBR before you shoot this, but like sexy ass cars, cool guys smoking Black and Milds, like beautiful shots of a cityscape. Like this is just a straight bro shot all the way. So yeah, and
I think we talked. Didn't we talk about like shoot it like a car commercial?
Yeah.
And then the artful or the pretentious artfulness came at the end with the twist. But it was all about taking advantage of the audience by setting it up as a cool car commercial.
Yeah, and
something that I always think about in general. I don't know when I've heard it, maybe like 3 years ago, and it's kind of given like focus to something like an idea. I feel like it's been kind of ephemeral in my brain, but it's given it like purpose. And I like love the quote. Someone was talking about why they liked Kanye West, but it was like a music reviewer, so they're kind of trying to be like, why is he quote unquote good? And they're like, he has a great knack for combining low art and high art. And I was like, dude, that is so true. And so I don't know. I always try to think of that when I'm creating is like, you know, make it purposeful. So in that way, I don't know, bring in elements of like higher art, like having this like purpose and this vision, but also like just make cool shit that people want to look at. Like you don't, you know, you can kind of like mix those two things together. And I think that ends up being the most like, not only like successful art, but like just enjoyable art. Cause you're like, yeah, it's not just like candy coated, but it's also not like, you know, some stuff you watch or you listen to, you're like, man, this is like fucking homework, you know, like I'm trying to, like, I just got off work. I'm trying to enjoy myself. So I think kind of bringing both those elements is kind of what I like doing. So.
Yeah. And I think everyone, brought their own elements. Like I think Jackie just said in the chat, everyone appreciated the comedy that you did, Justin. So they brought their own understanding of the joke to the table and made visuals kind of with that in mind. With that also in mind, that's about all of our time that we have for this like on air discussion. We've been going for one hell of a time for this show. This was a long ass show. I commend each and every one of you for sticking with it with the same energy that we started with. But we're going to wrap up our live show on Twitch and kind of move the hangout over to our Zoom party. Before we go, I do want to give a couple thank yous out to everybody that was involved in the production. So first of all, thank you so much to Justin for having this idea and, you know, also help being part of the Open Studio and wanting to do this as an Open Studio Presents. Thank you so much, Timmy Hart-Barron, Michael J. Garrity, and Dane Kissel for appearing on the show, coming to chat, sharing your thoughts, brains. Again, this was one marathon of a show, so excellent job sticking with it and keeping with the tech and remembering the golden rule backstage. Thank you to Jackie Manti and myself, a little pat on the back here for creating all these like amazing performance dimensions that we've been chatting in all night. And Michael Gow for the intro that you heard at the beginning, it seems like eons ago. And a big round of applause for Michael and I for both directing and appearing on this show. This is really fucking hard to do this at the same time. There's so many different things going on right now, so many different plates spinning.
You guys did great.
Thank you.
Michael
Next
is
week,
hearing voices 3 times.
He is hearing
they can hear
voices
us?
3 times.
And now me.
Yeah, he's hearing voices 3 times. Real quick before we wrap up, we've got our variety show next Thursday. It's not a joke. It is on April 1st. It's at our normal time, 9 p.m. Central. We're going to have Jessica Mizra, Glam Hag, and Lucia Whalen joining us, as well as Justin back in the host seat. Thank God he's going to take it from me. I can be behind the camera again. And then I want to say thank you to all of you that tuned in, whether it was just for a little bit or for the whole thing, or for those of you that have been tuning in since day one. We wouldn't be doing this if nobody came to watch it. I mean, we might, but it would suck a lot more than it does. It doesn't actually. It doesn't right now, but it would suck more if nobody watched this. If you want to stay in the loop with what we're doing, go ahead and hit that follow button on Twitch. Again, we have a show every single Thursday between now and the end of May, and we're also adding in some Tuesday shows, maybe some more, depending on how many ideas we get in our tank. You can also follow us on social media at Open Studio Shy. Open Studio Shy. And additionally, follow all of our guests. Follow Justin, follow Dane, follow Timmy, follow Michael, follow everybody on social media, especially now that we're slowly getting vaccinated and things are starting to slowly open back up and kind of trickle around nowadays. Keep in the loop of what they're doing. Make sure you can see what they create. And then lastly, if you want to contribute or appear on the show, there's, again, links all over the description of our Twitch channel. You can come to the Discord, just say hey. You can create some great visuals to include in our show. You can submit to perform, and you just, even if you have a show idea, you can submit. But that is it for me. I'm gonna go take a break. I'm gonna go hang out in the Zoom, open it up to everybody. We'll post the Zoom credentials here, and I will see y'all next Thursday.
They wish they had. Throw them bodies in the attic. I've been itching for a step. I've been more willing to kill him. I'm over the feeling. The baggage just sitting there. Might as well feel it. Unleashing the villain. Emotions are spilling. Don't act like you know me when I hit a billy, you bitch.